Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Own Your Breath podcast. With me today is Nikki Muller. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Correct.
Nikki Muller, a TV presenter and host, and now a third culture advocate. Welcome, Nikki.
So good to be here. You have no idea. I believe it's kismet. Your vibe attracts your tribe. So thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I met Nikki almost about a year ago, actually. I remember February a year last year. So one of your friends hired me for a private workshops. So Nikki came as one of the attendees, right? So you had this big bubbly energy, and I'm going to be honest, at that time, I literally just had a breakup, and I was low, I was low, but I have to move on, right? But then when I see you, I was like, who is this person? Because generally I'm pretty hype up thing. Then I'm like, I did ask you guys, I think, to do some, can't remember, dance,
Exercise, release,
jumping jack. Yeah, I swear by jumping jack, if you need to hype up, right? You really turn around your vibration quickly. And then Nikki was so on the ball, and I really like that. Like I really feel like I can feel that your energy is big, not just, I mean, you have great, beautiful energy, but I also can feel that you are somebody of presence, and yet grounded and humble.
Wow. That means the world to hear you say that, honestly. And your space it allows for that. As soon as someone walks in, they feel safe. They feel they can explore all the emotions, good or bad. There's no such thing as negative or positive. And as soon as I was in there, like you say, it was a dear friend of mine's birthday. I thought, hey, let's just see what happens. It was about manifesting, interestingly enough. It was a workshop about manifesting the life that you deserve. And to be honest, in that time, I was very stuck until very recently, because I knew I wanted to manifest, but I wasn't clear about what to manifest. And one of the most important things I said was clearly manifest the life that you want. And I was like, I know she's onto something. I know I'm supported here. I'm just not sure where the ship is headed. But thank you for saying that.
Most welcome. And I'm so happy to see you keep on coming back to my sound bar, because I love your energy. And here we are. I think you come to a clarity of what where you want to take your career next. And I could feel it when you told me a couple of weeks ago. I could feel the vibration. I could feel the certainty. So I'm so happy for you. And coincidentally, I just told you, would you like to come to be my speaker? And then you're like, oh my God, it's all so timely, isn't it?
Very timely, because I've been hoping that the more clear I am about what I want to do and how I want to help others, that opportunities will present themselves, that I can spread the message and just open dialogue and create awareness. And then when you asked me, I said, come on, this is too amazing.
Yeah, it's all
let's do it. I'm so stoked.
Confirmed. Yeah. Beautiful. All right. So Nikki is going to discuss about third culture basically. So we've heard the term before, third culture kids. So however, Nikki just explained to me prior to me recording this that it's kind of a bit limited when you just remain, place it as third culture kid, whereas a lot of people still struggle even as adults. So Nikki, would you explain to us what is third culture? What is third culture, kids?
So third culture kid is a term that's actually existed all the way since the late 50s. This is something that I had heard of before. Everyone had called it TCK. I knew that people said that people like me are TCK, but I never really delved in much further than that. I suppose I wasn't ready. Everything in its own time, right? But when you look at the research, and it's phenomenal, there's sociologists and psychologists that have looked into this area of study, which is really about looking at the experience. So the original term that was coined, TCK, was really kind of developed to describe a person who has spent the majority of their developmental years living in a country outside of their parents' passport country. So someone like myself, different age, there are TCKs in their 70s, 80s, 90s, those who are just been born. We all live a highly mobile, cross-cultural upbringing. So the developmental years is pretty significant when we look at third culture kid versus all the other third culture variations or cross-cultural, which is now kind of the new term and area of study. Developmental years is important because this is a time when you are still developing your own sense of personal and cultural identity. You're still trying to understand, what's my place in this world? What's my relationship like with my community and environment? What do I believe? What are my value systems, right? And so we're looking at the age of between 12 to 18. Clinically, your adolescent years are your developmental years. But really, of course, all the years prior to that color it too. If you're switching gears and you're switching environments, cultures, languages all the time, new sets of friends, when you're still learning your own language, all of that compacts and compounds, right? So that's the TCK experience. Imagine the ground beneath your feet literally keeps changing. You keep having to wear a new hat, introduce yourself again, understand that this is your normal life now, whilst other people can clearly say, hi, my name is so-and-so and I'm from. We can't. We don't have a home per se. When you say, where is home, do you mean where my mom is from, where my dad is from, where I just came from, where I'm now? And there's so many other variations too, right? It becomes very complex. And that can feel pretty terrible when you can't answer a simple question that most people can without blinking. And so when you start looking at your identity when you're older, of where you belong, because a third culture kid belongs everywhere and nowhere at the same time. These things kind of manifest in adulthood in a way that I was unprepared for until now.
Oh my God, that's such a great awareness and such a great topic to be brought up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it's important because there's about 220 million third culture kids in the world now, roughly. And that's going to continue to grow with this globalized world that we're living in, highly mobile world we're living in, transnational marriages. Like, I'm a product of mixed race, right? My father is Swiss Austrian, my mom's Filipino. I'm an only child. So imagine compounding all of those different.
I was just going to say, as you were talking, I'm like, you're constantly moving and you have got mixed parentage and all these things. And, oh, wow. And like I left my country early 20s or maybe mid 20s, and then I left it maybe for a long time, and that's already hard for me when I come back. I already feel a strong sense of I don't belong. Well, I left because I didn't feel quite fit in here, and then I kind of quite belong there because everyone was mixed, and then I come back again and I look like I should belong to this box, but mentally I'm not. I don't know, and then I can only imagine the struggle that you go through. Yeah. So
no, that's interesting. What you're talking about is what many third culture adults experience. The difference between you and me, even though we have those same, we can resonate. We can say, hey, that feeling of isolation when I go back home, I should be connected, but why am I? It's because I've changed. The place hasn't changed. The people haven't changed, but I've changed. So how can I just plug and play? Impossible. Your broadened worldview and your exposure to different ways and perspectives and cultures and ways of thinking, and that survival instinct of, I left my tribe and I started again. I'm self-sufficient. I can figure this out. And then you go back to your old chapter. It's hard to reconcile. And that's something that third culture adults all go through. My father and my mother are third culture adults like you. So I haven't spoken to my mom about this yet, but I did sit down and have a chat with my dad. And it was kind of interesting to hear him speak about his life because he was also unaware that TCA exists. The biggest difference.
Oh, adults. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Biggest difference with them and me, or you and I, is though we have those similar experiences of loss and the sense of belonging, and we're go-getters and we can survive anywhere and we can highly adapt. The difference is, for yourself, my father and my mother, is your sense of identity cultural and personal identity, who you are and where you're from, is pretty strong and pretty intact. You have roots in a certain place. Perhaps you were born and raised somewhere. You may have felt a bit different, but you knew what the traditions were. You knew the vernacular.
Yeah.
You knew the culture. It is you. You are them. They accept you 100%.
Yes.
Right? Whilst for a TCK or a third culture kid, we never had that. We were always mobile. Everything was changing all the time. So we take elements of all the places, the people, and the cultures that we've been in and assimilated with without having full ownership of any. So that's the main difference, even though some of the bigger long-term experiences in adulthood are the same.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do you actually manage these struggles, if I may say so, as an adult? Or, you know, maybe when you're younger, you don't quite realize this, right? Yeah. And then now you have more realization. How do you cope with it personally?
Well, actually, this is what's amazing about this year. I will call it my year of Satori, the enlightenment. And I say that because it's a real sense of relief. I think it took me 37 years to realize where I belong. And this year is a big shift for me because I feel like, again, being highly mobile and being able to adjust and go to a new place, start again from scratch. I came here 2 suitcases, nowhere to live and no job. It was not a problem at the time. As an adult, as a choice, I made that choice, even though all the moving was as a result of my parents' choices for me, right? Their work, etc. And all this time, and like you say, you know, you had mentioned kindly, when I walk into the room and I'm there, I want to be a part of the tribe. Subconsciously, my survival mechanism is I want to fit in. I want to connect with people because it is a lonely experience without realizing it's the unconscious. Bringing the unconscious to the conscious is so important. Oh,
yes. No, thank you so much for this awareness. Yeah, for bringing this up. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah. So the moment now is all this time of assimilating and making friends everywhere and finding it quite easy to make friends, but also quite easy to let go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I realized that all this time I've been sort of living with almost like a gray cloud everywhere I've been, every social setting I've been, every country I've lived, every job I've done, every party I've been to. I feel like there's always been this gray cloud with me, and I've never been able to understand its presence or what it meant. And I've built my whole life sort of like a protective bubble that I was unaware of. Because for me to survive, to know that I want to make friends, but I know that we may not be friends forever. In fact, it's just a matter of not if, but when.
Yeah.
So I find it hard to really delve. You know, I can connect quickly, but I'm not attached.
Yes.
With this over and over compoundedness, even though it's a rich upbringing, I mean, come on, people go, Nikki, what's your problem? What a great life. You've lived everywhere. You know, not many people get to experience this. You're educated in different places. You're exposed to all these new things, 100%, which is why I never gave myself permission to feel sorry for myself. I have a great life. What is your problem? Right? And TCKs experience this all the time. But for me at 37, I was like, so what is this looming sadness that I am not acknowledging? What can it possibly be? I never thought about it. I just knew that this was there. This cloud was there until this year. And I don't know how, I can't even tell you how I stumbled onto really researching third culture more and their particular book. One of the foremost authorities in the TCK experience wrote, Ruth Van Rieken. She said at 39, she felt what I felt. She couldn't quite place it. Why do you feel this sadness? What is this? Your sense of guilt because you should be feeling a life of privilege and blessing, which we do. But it's always this polarity of joy and enrichment, but also a constant meal of loss. Our life is a constant meal of loss that we do not necessarily give ourselves permission to address and to fully absorb, etc. So for her at 39, she started writing letters. She made a book out of it called Letters I Never Sent. It was, and I tell you, I opened the book. I was like, I can't even read this straight because every letter is dear mom and dad. And it was here all the things I was feeling at the time, but did not say or didn't quite understand. Because remember, these are developmental years. You don't have the capacity for language to even explore these feelings, let alone Tell your parents what you're feeling, or
Absolutely.
what this move means to me, what you're doing to my world.
Absolutely.
When you end my world because you think it's best for me and it's best for you, it happens so quickly. We don't even talk about it because kids are supposedly resilient and can bounce back. But there's a lot happening there underneath the surface that was never given any time. So now is this time for me. I read. I'm reading books, I'm reading research. Finally, there's words and data to explain who I am. Finally, who I am. And that means I now belong to people with similar experiences, other third culture kids. That's my home. It's not a place, it's that community.
Oh, Nikki, I'm happy you come across these, honestly. And just FYI for all of us, for everyone, you know, I'm very into grieving processes. I'm very much into grieving processes, and I'm running workshops on it as well, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about grieving. They think you have to lose somebody to grieve, but in reality, the reason why we have this looming sadness, grayness, these gray clouds above us, no matter how fantastic our life is, because we as human beings have so much to grieve constantly over and over again, but we were not taught this. And just listening to your story, you know, about this childhood, all these things, all the explanation, I mean, me doing the job that I do, I feel deeply, you know, I feel this sadness, you know. So the next time if we see someone, it's so easy when we see someone having a great job, having more than enough salary or money, whatever it is, right? The grass always looks greener on the other side, you know. Like I feel like sometimes when you are an expat, I've been an expat before, I have very little sympathy or empathy from people, you know, because you're supposed to be just grateful. We are also grateful for our lives, for everything. But don't forget, every human being have our own challenges, you know, and to each his own, and it's very unique. And each of us struggle and have, deserve certain level of empathy, and got nothing to do with not being grateful, but we all need one another in order to be a successful human being.
I'm so glad you said that. And I'm so glad that you can empathize. And of course, in the work that you do and how you help people navigate these experiences that they may not even fully comprehend what's happening, why it's happening, and what it means. But it's an important part of the journey, right? That awareness. So grief for a third culture kid, grief is normal and grief is fine. We all go through grief in different ways. Like you say, it could be for a person, it could be for a place, it could be for something. But grief is okay. The problem is unresolved grief.
Yeah.
Unresolved grief can really, as you know, can really fester, and it can really affect you in different ways and hold you back in different ways if you don't really take the time to acknowledge that it exists.
Yeah.
And as you know quite well, and a TCK goes through various stages of grief, but the reason why we feel this way more as an adult now, what I'm feeling is everything I felt then, but I was in so much shock and I didn't have any time to process that. Now I'm like, hey, okay, that's what happened. One is obviously the lack of awareness. So things like this, being able to speak with you, being able to tell other people, say, hey, just Google it. There's a lot of support out there. And hopefully I can be a part of that journey too. But the lack of permission to grieve is something that a lot of TCKs, certainly before the advent of Google, we're talking about this. Your parents said, tomorrow we're going here, or okay, at the end of this school term, we're going to leave the continent and go somewhere else, right? So all of a sudden, I liked what Ruth said, one of the foremost authorities. She said, you get on a plane, and from that plane ride to when it reaches the tarmac in the new culture, that's the only time you get to grieve, if ever. And once those doors open in the new location, everything's new. Okay, go, new school, new house. Okay, new school bag, new friends, new food, new language, new sights, new smells. You have had no chance to process the world that just ended. And so that kind of lack of permission to grieve, and parents didn't mean to do this, okay? They just didn't know what was happening, especially my parents, because they grew up very differently from the way I did. And then so there's the lack of time, like I said, the lack of comfort. Who do we talk to about this? Now it exists. There's a lot of transition care that exists. But in the time of the 80s and 90s, for me, No one
Yes.
talks about it. Even in international schools, they just said, where are you from? Where'd you come from? Japan? Great. Here you are, new life. Without saying, hey guys, what we've all just done is total Twilight Zone. We've just come from a whole other world and we're supposed to all be kumbaya in this new world. Sure, we do it because we're highly adaptable. That's how we survive. Doesn't mean that we didn't go through a lot. So that lack of understanding in your developmental years makes it much more complex in your adulthood if you don't give yourself the time and you don't support yourself with a tribe that can work with you on the journey.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Mm.
I think I think so important whenever you feel don't belong, it's a limiting belief. I mean, how you feel is true, is legit, but it's limitingly in the sense that if you do have to do your research, you do have to find your tribe. This is what I mean. Like, because if you look hard enough, you will find your own special tribe, and like you say, that's where you belong. That's your home, because you're never alone in this world. Yeah. So great that you look around hard. So you covered what the challenges the TCKs experience. So tell me, what are the benefits of being a TCK? Like you say, resilient, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of benefits to being a TCK. And in fact, that's something that I'm focusing on now, is to really leverage whatever challenges that we may be dealing with through the grieving process, the delayed grieving process, to really be able to harness them as superpowers. Because I always say, you can only really harness the power of your vulnerabilities if you acknowledge that they exist. And from there, all of a sudden you realize, hold on, I've been sitting in a gold mine this whole time and not even aware of the superpowers that I have. Yeah. So then you start to reframe, right? You start to reframe from when some people can consider a victim mentality to actually one of complete empowerment. And that is the benefit of such an enriched upbringing, meaning when you are highly mobile, therefore, you are much more open to different cultures. You're much more sensitive to different cultures, different perspectives. It doesn't necessarily have to be a race issue or people of different nationalities. It could be just different viewpoints. You're just much more open-minded, right? Much more flexible. You mentioned psychological resiliency, which I think is the biggest superpower. Yeah. To be able to handle change under duress and under stress, the way that TCKs have had to change very quickly and handle new environments in a moment's notice. It's something that we do without even thinking. And we do so hopefully with aplomb and with a very even keel, because that's our survival mechanism. That's how we've been able to thrive in a very unusual world, which is for us the norm. So those are great, great benefits, right? To be able to handle change so quickly, and certainly in positions of leadership. I always say, I believe TCKs are clear, confident, empathic communicators who can change the world, because globalization is in their DNA. Right? So when you have that global experience, it really builds cultural awareness, like I said, in that broader worldview, flexibility, open-mindedness, and develops really impactful leaders. Why? Because now companies and corporations, they're putting a lot of emphasis on diversity and inclusion, right? And things are changing all the time for industries in various sectors, meaning it's becoming more complicated. So if you need someone who can really take in different viewpoints and get everybody's buy-in on board for change management, then a TCK is the person you need to tap into. They know how to do these things with their eyes closed. They know how to fit in and to try and get everyone on board.
They're more fluid, they can,
they can assimilate in all these different environments. And very importantly, if we're looking at why it's important in a globalized world, you talk to a TCK, they're not going to bat their eyes twice about having to move to Qatar tomorrow from Buenos Aires. The question is, what time's the flight and how long do I have? We can do it. We can begin again. So these are the kinds of people that, not only are great in a work setting, team setting, or in positions of leadership, but someone with that kind of empathy and understanding and open-mindedness, I believe that will hopefully make a good person, a good spouse, a good friend, a good community builder. I mean, there's so many sort of natural gifts that way, from becoming multiple or multiculturally competent, I should say. Yeah. And of course, many of them also speak many languages. This is one of the reasons employers really like the idea of a TCK. And if they don't know what TCK is, they need to look it up and find out who in their organization grew up like this, because they're sitting on that gold mine without knowing it, because they assimilate, right? Yeah, they speak different languages. So the more fishing poles you have when you go to work to be able to communicate on different levels, well, the higher impact you're going to have, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I can totally see your point that, being a TCK will make a great leaders, because today we do need to be very flexible, fluid, and, to be able to see people from different point of view, and who's better than you guys.
Yeah, or third culture adults like you as well. Similar experience can handle that. And you speak multiple languages. You see, you're doing it already. You're changing the world already.
As you were speaking, it makes me realize it. I mean, I know I have a gift, like, I can connect with about just anybody, but I just realized because also as a child, I changed homes, not countries, but I changed homes so many times. So many
times. Yes, this is true.
In different homes without my parents. So I keep on having to readjust myself because I have to please so many people, right? Even as a child. So
that's called a domestic TCK.
Ooh.
That is another area of study that are going to have similar experiences. So you're a domestic TCK. It happened within your home country, constant movement. Or maybe your friends also changed a lot within your home country. Maybe they moved on and did their own thing. So we have similar experiences with belonging and grief and with loss and with quick change. And
beautiful. Love it. So tell me, Nikki, can you recall some of the struggles you had as a child when you're growing up as a TCK?
I can. I think the biggest thing for me is, to be honest, the more I talk about this, the more I read about it. My body has sort of a somatic reaction. A somatic reaction, meaning my brain, my analytical brain says, what is going on? This was so long ago. You have a great life, but my body remembers, right? Like the book, your body keeps
score. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And so I was just recently, a couple of weeks ago, on a plane back to the Philippines. I was visiting some family there. So I spent some time living in the Philippines. My high school, I was there, but I had moved there from England. And as I was reading this book, Third Culture, because this is sort of like this book is everything. It's addition to the work. It's just beautifully done, because there's a lot of great data, but there's also personal stories that people can relate with, but most importantly, how to deal with issues of grief and leverage those superpowers as an adult. But as I was reading this book, I tell you, thank God we had to wear masks on the airplane, because it was just deluge. My body was reacting to words that felt like it was specifically written about me. It's like, strumming my pain with his fingers, that whole singing my life with his words. That's what this book was doing for me. And I was like, it was killing me softly, and I couldn't understand what was happening.
I feel you.
What is going on? Because this experience, though it happened to all sorts of other people, was also mine. And I went, how fitting. I'm on a plane. And the plane is where you grieve, or that's the last place you have to grieve before you begin again. Except my life in the Philippines, my new life growing up for high school in the Philippines, I was not given that time on the plane. And my parents know about this. I've spoken to my mom, not quite my dad, but I would say 14. 14, I had already lived in England for 7 or 8 years.
Where were you born?
I was born in Switzerland, but I wasn't raised there. I didn't spend much time there, though I try to connect when I can. It's so important to me to connect with my Swiss roots because I haven't lived there. I try with the language, and I also look very different. But I had to learn the language good enough to communicate with my grandparents who didn't speak much English. So I'm glad I had that opportunity. And every time I go back, I'm just like, I can't wait to live here one day. Let's hope that the universe allows me to get there and experience what it's like to be Swiss. I have a Swiss passport, never lived there. Hello, do you know it's crazy? My passport has never matched the country I've lived in ever. So that's a whole other ball game. But yeah, so I moved to England. I think I was 7. we moved there twice. My parents, they like to, they've been to New York, Philippines, Hong Kong. We lived in England. England was very much my home. And I noticed that now as an adult. So when I go back to England, it really feels like home. It's a homecoming. I understand the vernacular. I understand the dry humor. I love the food, because those for me are my formative years, 7 to 14, right? That's where my friends were. I went to a local school. I didn't know I wasn't English, except I looked different. I didn't know I wasn't English. No one cared about mixed race and other countries. I was from that school. These were my friends. My friends didn't judge at the time. I was very lucky. I didn't grow up with racism in the town that I was in. But imagine this. So I'm there for 7 years and I have my friends, and I was very excited to start a new school in England, because it was going to have boys. I had gone to like a Catholic girls' school the whole time and I was so over it. And I managed to convince my parents, I need to be around boys, okay? It's not normal. It's not normal to not be around boys. How you expect me to act at 18 years old around men if I've never actually met one outside of my father and my godfather, right? So I was excited to start a new school. I was still going to be very close to my friends. They lived down the road. So as was normal, I went back to the Philippines for holidays. So summer holidays and Christmas holidays. This summer holiday was very different in 99.
What?
Because that was the year my world ended.
Oh.
So my parents sat me down, and it was maybe like 2 weeks before I was supposed to fly back to England. And my mom just goes, "You're not going back." What do you mean I'm not going back? My house, my things, my friends, my life, everything. Me. I mean, every pencil, every book. I wasn't going back. I didn't even have that time to be like, hey, next week, give me 1 week. No, you're just never going back. And as a 14-year-old, trying to understand what was going on, and I was just in shock. And they said, but don't worry, here's another thing. Your parents like to do this. And there's nothing against them. Parents do this because they want to comfort you.
Yeah.
What parents will say, but don't worry, we know it's hard, but guess what? You're going to be so excited about this new school. We tend to do that. We tend to not allow or give space for the child to grieve, to be sad.
Exactly.
By covering it up with a Band-Aid. Oh, but don't worry, you're so lucky. Look at this new experience. True. I was going to a great school and one of the best experiences of my life. Moving to that school, honestly, is the best experience of my life. But I don't want to discount what happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that school that I was going to now, that new Don't Worry school, had already started. I'm in another country and another culture that, yes, I'm Filipino, but I've never lived like this. And I'm going to high school. I've never known boys. And you're going to put me in a new school that's already started and it's high school. I mean, come on. I talk about it now when I'm having this experience. I didn't know what was happening then. It was just, that's it. That's the cards you're dealt with. Be grateful. Enjoy your new life. So that's my example of complete blindsidedness. My example of complete blindsidedness, where I was just told what was going to happen. There was no time. There was no comfort. There was no permission to grieve. It was just say goodbye to your old world. Tomorrow you begin again.
That is insane.
So used to that over and over and over again. But that was hard. And then the culture shock of this new school. One, there's boys. I'm wearing my clothes that I thought were really cool, but I grew up in a pretty insular part of England where actually we weren't cool. The music we listened to was not considered cool. In the new school I was at, I learned that quickly when I showed up first day of school with my Backstreet Boy t-shirt and everyone's laughing at me going, who likes Backstreet Boys? We like rock here. We like alternative music. We listen to Chili Peppers, not Backstreet Boy. Immediately, what did I do? I threw away that shirt and never wore it again.
And again, you feel you don't belong. The second keep on triggering.
Yes, but I adapted quickly. I realized people listen to different music here. People wear makeup at school. I'll start wearing makeup at school. And within a week, I looked and sounded just like them. My accent changed within the first semester. I grew up talking like this. This was my normal accent everywhere I was until I was 14. Then I moved to Manila. In 1 month, I sounded just like them. And that's what I sound like now. It's what you program. You don't even know it's happening to you, but that's how you survive. And it was great. I loved that school. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. But I don't want to discount that the way it happened,
Absolutely.
that was not all right.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. That's heavy. You know,
It's heavy when you look back, but at least there were cute boys in the new school. See, I'm doing it again. I'm telling myself, it's fine, Nikki. Come on, look at all the great.
Trying to make, trying to vanilla spread it. Yeah. Yeah. I think this goes for everything, right? Whatever you feel. If you don't feel you don't feel belong, if you feel ashamed, you feel sad, you feel angry, own up to it. Pause. You can still be grateful. You'll still be a positive person. But pause to embrace and need to acknowledge what's happening. Because if you don't, it all gets stored in your system, and then one day it hits you like a truck.
Exactly.
We don't want that to happen, because it happened to me. I'm sure it happened to you. That's why we both are doing the work that we're doing now. So yes, but it's important to embrace, acknowledge whatever emotions that comes out, and this is a very important part of grieving.
Yeah, it really, really is. And so this me kind of crying in front of you, this is me every day now, ever since I had the aha moment of, I'm a third culture kid and this is what it means, and this is my place in the world, and that's what happened. This is why I think this way. We have unique viewpoints, right? And so when you asked me where I belong, and I said I belong in that third culture, because look at the research and the work and the studies, they determined that TCKs have a very distinct way of behaving and looking at the world, and their own kind of codes of lifestyle and work norms and perspectives, which is why we believe with people who look at the world like that and act that way. So it's a totally different culture than our parents' culture or our host culture, which is where I am now. My host culture is Singapore, and I've lived here longer than anywhere else in my life. So when people ask me where's home, I go, I guess Singapore. Right? Because another thing that people like us go through is we will tailor our answers depending on who's asking the question. That's why we are chameleons. With you, I can be 100% flat out right. I know there's no judgment. In fact, you will take time to lean in and be curious and wonder why and what's going on. Sometimes you can read very quickly as a TCK what this person can handle in terms of information. So I will change my answer depending. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And so all of this is something that's been going on. And to be honest, I'm very happy that the kind of younger generation TCKs have support systems that those prior to the 2000s did not. International schools now, if TCKs are in international schools, some are, many are, there are a lot of great support systems there. In fact, all these foremost authorities of TCK culture, they've created coaching for parents, for teachers, for students to be open about what they're feeling. I mean, if you're listening to this, I would look up Daraja, D-A-R-A-J-A. Michael V. Pollack has dedicated his life to being able to help TCKs of all ages through transition, something I didn't have. But now I know that he exists. I can go and have a one-on-one coaching session with one of the foremost authorities of TCK. I mean, how lucky are we, right? Or there's SPAN, if you're interested, Safe Passage Across Networks, that the other authority, Ruth Van Rieken, has set up for teachers. So all of this is there now. We just have to tap into that and ensure that our kids, like for me, if I'm lucky enough to have my own children with my current partner, that would make our kids Irish.
Amen to that. If you're my current, I'm going to slip in. Amen.
Hey, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yes.
But our kid or kids would be Irish, Sudanese, Filipino, Swiss.
Wow.
That's a lot. And we don't even know where we're going to live next, because he's also TCK. So I want to be, what's great is I can make a conscious choice as I raise my child or children to say, what you're going through is hard. And I know it.
I love that.
I want you to feel it.
Oh, love it. Yes, I'm all about feeling it. I'm all about embracing, embracing the complete human emotions, because you want to be successful. Number one secret, embrace all the emotions that come out. I'm not saying this is permission for you to, brood on it forever, but, embrace, acknowledge it, process it, and then move on. Find ways how then to find, you don't feel belong, right? That's true. And then, embrace it, process it, and then find ways around it, because you do belong somewhere, but you do need to do some homework. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. They're not going to, your tribe isn't going to be FedEx to you, as much as that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But I guess we're living in a great time now where we are so much more connected than we ever have been, or the potential to be as connected is there. Some people choose to, choose not. There are communities there, right? There's support systems. And I hope to be part of that journey for people, kind of like what I'm doing now when I say, okay, I had this personal aha moment, right? But how can I now mesh that with my career?
Yeah.
And I think, my God, what a great life if I can use my skills and my gifts and what I've learned through my career as a journalist, and telling other people's stories to, one, tell my own, but hopefully help someone else out there who's been going through what I'm going through. And there are millions who don't even know what's going on underneath, just like me until recently. Hopefully be able to guide them on that journey and say, hey, we aren't alone. There's a lot of great support systems out there, but most importantly, let's harness these gifts and see how you can become more impactful in the workplace and as a leader. So this is more research that I want to do. I want to basically just spread it, right? Talk about it everywhere that I can, and shift gears so that what I end up doing and speaking about is TCK, or third culture, or cross culture.
Important work needed, especially today. Nikki, you are right where you needed to be, and I can't think of a better person to do this work, especially in Singapore. I've not heard much. Now, I've heard my friends talking about it, but they're all overseas. So I think you are needed to be in your host country, your host home. Is that what you refer to?
Yeah.
Because you are given this big responsibility with sense of purpose. With all that you are doing, your journalist experience, and the person you are, and to incorporate this newfound passion, that you firsthand experience it. Can't be more meaningful.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I'm sure you've also heard, when people say to you, hey, Rihanna, I know what I want to do. And there are moments when I'm so in flow, right? When we're in flow, we're writing about it, we're reading, everything is connecting. I realize there's so many people out there doing the work already, and I can use bits of that and compile it in my own way. And then all of a sudden, fear.
Imposter syndrome a little.
Sometimes I go, what am I doing? What makes me think I could go out there and say all these things?
That's why you come to own your breath, Nikki. Own your breath is about owning everything that you are, your voice, your struggles, your strength, what you want to be. I want people, for me, my purpose, my greatest wish is that people embrace everything that you are. And if you forget, I'm going to remind you, because the day that I need that, I want this community to remind me too, because I'm human, right? Because like you, I'm this ambitious person, but we've also with this fear. But but I meet people like you, every now and then, you guys also give me this strength. And yeah, you're perfect. You're perfect. You're so much needed, and your passion is I can feel the fire burning, Nikki. And on those days that you don't feel it, it's so normal. I've got those days as well. Give me a call.
Thank you for that. And I think it's important to acknowledge that nothing can be done on your own, right? And I think as a TCK, especially an only child TCK of divorced parents, you're kind of just used to getting on with it on your own.
Yeah.
And that's not the way life is done right, and not the way life is done well. So yeah, what you've just said, reminding me that you are there, reminds me to lean on other people of similar experiences.
Absolutely.
who go through their ups and downs, just say, hey, when you hit that roadblock and you go, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Take the time to acknowledge that, what you're doing is, like you say, meaningful and important, but it's not going to be done on your own. So you go ahead and you tap and
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
else can figure out your next right move, or even just hold space. I think that's the most important
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
Hey, today I feel fear. Today I'm going to feel fear all damn day, and it's okay. Today's my fear
Absolutely.
day.
True, true, true. See,
Right?
it's so funny that, we've been conditioned in such a way that one thing to feel just another emotions of the few hundred emotions that we all human being has, we need permission. Can you believe? A feeling of sadness or not enough, fearful, angry, we are afraid to be honest about it, because we were told, be happy, be grateful, be this, and then that makes you like this person being looked up to. But I beg to differ, as so many people. I think the earlier you realize that you are entitled to all these emotions, and surround yourself with other human beings that allow you to be fully you, fully human, the faster you actually will embrace your full power. And I especially like how you say, when you point out, what the strength, the fact that you're sitting on this gold mine all along. So one of the things that I do is that I take people's weaknesses or things that they are ashamed of, I change it into power, because really all our weaknesses, the things that we're ashamed of, really are gold mine. You embrace them, you process them, boom, they change to become your power. And I'm not saying it's so easy, it's easily spoken. There's some work needed to be done, but that's life. Yeah.
That's right. You're absolutely right. And that's why I'm so grateful for this time to be able to share this with you, and to, be able to kind of go through and process it myself as I'm speaking.
Yeah.
It's all ahas and wonderful.
Funny, right? Yeah. Even for me, I'm already like thinking, certain things that you point out, and gives me realization of myself. I'm like, oh my God, this is something I need to address in my next podcast. um, I do wanted to go back a bit, backtrack, when you mentioning about, someday if you hope, be a parent, sounds to me you're going to be a conscious parent, which I love, what would you, you will be, you're already a conscious leader. You will be.
I will tell you something.
Yes, please
Only
go.
to be told here for your ears and all your followers' ears only.
Yeah.
Speaking of children,
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand why at this age, 37, not why I don't have children, but why I'm still not sure I want to have children. Now, many women go through this, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I'm wondering whether that is related to my TCK upbringing. The fact that a lot of it was feelings of isolation and moving around, it's like, and connecting and having to bring a child into this world, and going, usually when you bring a child into this world, you're going to raise them the way you were raised.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just processing, going, is one of the reasons I'm not sure about children. There are days I wake up and I want them more than anything, is what a wonderful legacy, right? And what a wonderful blessing gift. And other days where I'm like, but I love my life now. My TCK upbringing of, I can go wherever I want, whenever I want. I can leave anytime I want. This highly independent. Then the older you get, the more you feel you have to lose. It's like, I love my life, my highly mobile, multicultural, rich life that allows me to do these new things and venture into new research. Will a child stop me from doing that? Now, this is a huge thing to say. And I wonder whether it's a result of my TCK upbringing, and also just not really being able to commit. Our sense of attachment and commitment is not quite 100% with TCK. So it's just how it is in the studies, for obvious reasons of survival.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something that's coming up. But we'll see where it goes. But yes, what was your question about children? Should I have them? Should I be blessed to have them?
Yes. Well, I'm with you as well. Like, I think because of my upbringing, like children has never been top of my list, and so I'm like, if it's there, I'll be the best mother I could be. If it's not, I'm really happy with my lifestyle. You know, it sounds, I've been called selfish before, but I said, but at least I'm honest. You know?
I think that's it. That's you're a third culture adult. I'm a third culture kid. So
Yeah.
that experience of it is what it is. If things happen for the better, great. If you don't get it, it's also okay. We are so highly adaptable, and we are
Yeah.
fully in the present because
Yes.
it's always going to change. So we
Yes.
are 100% grounded in the now. The
So,
whole
so
idea of what
true.
life will look like, you
So
have no
true. Like even my family, they don't travel as much as me before. Like one of my sister asked me, you know, we're talking about religions, like afterlife, all these things. But so my answer is, I'm living here today in this world. My priority is to be a good person today, and tomorrow things. I'm not gonna think so much of my afterlife. As long as but this is for me, you know. Um, as long as I am doing the best that I could for me, for the people around me, and I'm not hurting anyone, I think I can't see why my afterlife is going to be bad. I mean, assuming I even know what's happening after life, and she just give up on me. But I said, but you see the logic I'm saying, right? There's tiny bit of logic. Come on, give it to me. And she just walk away. Conversation finished. Never brought up again. So, but you're
agree
right.
to disagree.
I think you're right. I think because we are based on our background, we are able now to be in the present moment instead of worrying so much ahead, right? So yeah, what I wanted to ask you, what advice, given that you had this experience, you know, the story you tell me, the struggles as a child, and then you know what kind of mother you want to be. Like I love the fact that you say that you want your child to feel everything that you know, and be honest, you know. What advice would you want to give to parents who you know, who are raising TCKs?
I think that parents raising TCKs are also going through their own changes and their own transitions. And because they're the adult, may also not be giving themselves time to grieve. So if you can imagine what it's like for a parent or an adult who may have been, I don't know, born and raised in Italy and all of a sudden marry someone and they have to be highly mobile, that's a huge change. That's a huge shift. You're leaving everything that you know and your safety net. So I would say to a parent that's going through that, that's you with someone who's got their feet on the ground and rooted. What's it going to be like for your kid where they're still trying to figure out the sense of who they are? So just allow them to do a couple things. One, if you are moving them to another country from another place, to really give them the time to talk about the excitement and also the sadness.
Yeah.
So allow them to speak it. And if they can't find the words, just hold space. What a lot of people do is they say, hey, so we're moving to another country and it's going to be sad to leave this place because it's been home for so long. What are some of the things that we can bring from this country with us that will remind us of how wonderful this was? What would you like to take with you? And give the kid time to say, well, maybe it's this particular spoon, right? Or it's, I want to bring this favorite food that you can't get anywhere outside of Ghana, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, and another thing is one of my aunt, my mom's best friend, I call her aunt. Her son is my godson, and he's someone I can't wait to talk to because he's ultimate TCK. And what I liked about what his mom did was every time they moved, she kept the furniture the same.
Lovely.
She insisted everywhere we go, okay, we will have moments that remind, or pieces that remind us of where we've been, to acknowledge that it existed and not just jump cut, it never happened, which happens a lot with TCKs. It's like, oh, I'm here, and we have nothing to remind us of where we were before, as if it never happened, and it invalidates the experience.
Yeah.
What she did was she said, okay, if you're lucky enough to be able to bring your things into like a shipment, which some people can, then having the same furniture helps. If you can't, because it's also expensive, then those little things you can bring with them, just because it's important for them to remember, you know, every stage of their journey, to validate every milestone. of that very
Such
enriching
a good
experience.
point. Such a
Yeah.
good point. Thank you.
Just be able to talk about it, and also tell their teachers, if you're bringing them to an international school, hopefully it's an international school that is open to talk about what other TCKs are going through, so they feel that they're not alone. They may know that they're not alone. Hey, this person came from Japan, this person came from Cambodia. Yeah, but we're not talking about what it means. ISKL in Kuala Lumpur, I believe they give every student that's leaving a parting ceremony, which is beautiful.
Nice. Yeah.
And they're allowed to say, hey, here's the things I like about you. Here's the things I'll miss about you. Here are the things that I'm excited for you. And here's a piece of string to remind you, you can put it in your pocket everywhere you go.
Yeah.
There's still a place that you came from that you can go back to anytime. Little memento.
Yes.
It's not big gear shifts. It's subtle, but it's being present and allowing them to work through it the best. You give them that space, right? As we were talking about grief, because it is going to be grief. So let them be aware of it. Give them their permission to feel the loss as well as the excitement, which will obviously come.
Absolutely.
Because kids are resilient. They'll be
Yeah.
like, yay, new place. But
Yeah.
okay, don't expect them to bounce back tomorrow. And don't feel bad either that I'm doing this to my kid, because
Yeah.
you are giving them a life that is extraordinary. And if you just hold their hand from time to time and tell them it's okay to be sad, then all of a sudden, that's it. They don't have to deal with any unresolved grief later on. They can go straight to, hey, guess what? I've been driving a Ferrari this whole time. I never knew it.
Yeah.
Wow. Like people like me, I feel like sometimes I was sitting in a banged up rental. No, it wasn't a banged up rental. It was a Ferrari the whole time, but I didn't know it.
That's so true. I can imagine. Do you know what? Your word is so much needed. I'm serious, and you also will make a great grief coach.
Think so? First, I have to go through my own stuff. Otherwise, I'd be like, sorry, we have to stop the session. Cannot. Right? It becomes like comedy. I'm sorry. I can't deal with
it. Now you're walking through your own grieving process. I'll see you end of the month for inner child healing, right? And then we'll go through this first. I'll be happy to do a one-on-one session with you even. However,
I would love to, because I did the inner child healing sound bath with you.
Yeah.
Very good for me. Part of that same night that I told you that, hey, I'm leaning in a different direction. And it opened up something. It opened up that, there's a bit of sadness and relief and sometimes anger, all of these things that don't come in order. Sometimes you have acceptance and then the next day you're angry. You're like, wait, I thought I accepted this already. What's going on? Right?
Yes.
So it's a work in progress.
Right. And it's never over. They all come, you promise over, they come and know that it's part of the process. Yeah. So Nikki, how can we all learn from TCKs?
How can we all learn from TCKs? I think, again, the benefits of just being open-minded. I think we can learn from TCKs. I think TCKs inherently lean in, are a lot more curious about other people. I think that's why TCKs make really good friends and make really good friends quickly, because they're open book real fast, which a lot of cultures they hesitate to be around people like that, who are hard on sleeve right away. And I think that's inherent because we want to connect and we want to belong very quickly in a new environment. It's part of how we survive and assimilate. So you can learn from TCKs in that way. And I mean, I guess their global experience and having been to other places, it will hopefully make you a bit more open-minded to the way other people think versus the way you
totally agree. Yeah. There's so much to learn from people who have been mobile, who travel so much.
But to be honest, you know what? You can learn these things without being a TCK now because of the benefits of technology. With all the different social media channels and our Netflix and our Googles, I think that it is less of a culture shock. I think people are a lot more open-minded and much more aware about how other people look and think and talk and their politics. But a TCK,
agree.
Sorry, did you say you agree or you don't agree?
No, I totally agree. However, I still find speaking to someone, listening to someone, listening firsthand is still powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can Google things, a lot, but I still find every time a lot of things that I may know, but whenever I speak to one-on-one, I still will be mind blown. I still will feel all these things that, that I probably don't feel it 100% while on Google, things like that. So human connection is still, at the end of the day, top of the list.
Yeah. And I think that's probably, now that I look back at sort of my choice of vocation, there's two things that pop out as a result. One is I'm a freelancer, and my father decided to also leave. So he left high flying banking life. I left the United Nations headquarters, a very stable job.
Were you? I didn't know.
Yeah, so I left a lot of that, and that's something that TCKs have. We don't really want to be tied down. We're highly independent. Freedom means everything because we got used to that kind of mobility. So working for the man or working in one particular way isn't as fulfilling. I think I want to explore this area of research. I haven't done that, but the people I've talked to, I was like, we're kind of the same. Huh? We're doing this. We don't want to be tied down. This rootlessness has a domino effect, right? So I think that's why I've been a freelancer, meaning, yes, I've had different networks that I've worked with, different clients that I work with now as a host, but it's not one particular, I'm not ever in-house, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And second, the whole exploration of journalism, wanting to talk to people, wanting to get to know people. I always preferred the longer feature stories. So getting to know someone's, what makes them tick, where are they from, what do they believe in, versus the 1 minute 15 news package. A lot of people love that. They're like reporters, and all they thrive on is that adrenaline of, I only have 2 hours to get this story out. It's like, that's not me. I really want to get to know the person. And that's why I think TCKs are great listeners. I mean, really good listeners. And can take all of those collected experiences to make informed decisions when the going gets tough. I know for my father, under extreme duress that would, for most people, freak them out, he's cool as a cucumber. The number of military coups, living in Latin America, where it, at a time where cartels were rampant, various takeovers, also, of course, living in areas where there's a lot of natural disasters, so earthquakes and typhoons. My dad's just like really chill. Whilst most people will freak out, he'll go, well, what can you do about it? Just breathe. It's all good. It's all gravy, baby.
Wow.
You think everyone should think like that, but they don't, because most people have not experienced everything that you've gone through. A TCK is very forward minded. Doesn't matter what happened yesterday. We deal with what we have now. That's a lot you can learn from having a friend like that, or having someone like that in your circle.
Yeah. I mean, I already learned so much out of this conversation. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you for that. And for you too. I'm happy that you notice that you are a domestic TCK.
Yes.
And have you ever been back home? When you say home, which country?
Singapore. I used to say I've got two homes, Singapore and Dubai. But now I'm more rooted in Singapore. I didn't feel belong again. I was struggling. I did ship half a container, my furniture, my whole apartment. I did ship, so that helps me. And I didn't really want to leave my apartment. If I leave to the airport to go out of Singapore. The first 2 years, that was my life, and then I realized I'm running away from this discomfort of not belonging. So I'm always meeting my friends overseas. But then again, my bank account cannot sustain that for too long. And I need to work anyway. Like I have a business. Like you, I'm also a freelance. Well, not freelance, but in a way, like we have our own business. So then I set up On Your Breath.
Then you set up On Your Breath. And this is
then I find my own community, and I want people to know, no, we don't have to hide or run. Let's face it, let's embrace everything that we are. So here I am. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible. But your nationality, your race, where were you born? Was it Indonesia, Malaysia, or Singapore?
No, I'm Singaporean, but my ID says I'm Javanese, Indonesian. because my dad's Indonesian. My dad's Indonesian Arab, but I've grown up
here
all along in Singapore. With my father's side, we keep on reminding us about us. You're not Singaporean, you're Indonesian, you know, things like that. And then, yeah. So
it's one of the reasons why I feel so comfortable here, and must have made a when I chose to move here, it must have been subconscious. How
long have you been here?
12 years now. I've done the full zodiac calendar. I'm back to year, which is cool. It took me that long to figure out what's going on, but that's okay. Yeah, I mean, Singapore is multicultural and diverse. When you say Singaporean, we all look a bit different, right? We have Chinese, we have Malay, we have Indian heritage, and then you have others, yes. Right? Like myself. Yes, it's a nice mishmash of, and we have to, at least on the surface, be as tolerant as possible. And I love that I may be Christian, but I'm 100% aware of what's going on during Hari Raya and Ramadan, and vice versa. You know, there's this real open-mindedness,
tolerance, yeah,
tolerance,
yeah,
that exists, and that's and one of the reasons why I think Singapore, also as a very new country, has also struggled with its identity. If you look at it over the years, having to begin again with little to no natural resources, leveraging only people, and finding a way for us to all, again, on the surface, coexist. So I think subconsciously, for a TCK or someone who's born that way, raised that way, Singapore it feels like home because of it, because everyone's others.
That's true. I think that when I was in Dubai, why I felt kind of belong is because 90% of the population were expats in Dubai. So I didn't feel I was out, you know, like in Singapore before I left. I've always had my own opinion, you know. I'm a good team player, but I also think I've got this natural ability to be a leader. So if you give me a task, I'll do it, but I need to know that if it doesn't make sense to my common sense, I need to know the reasoning behind it.
Yes.
But being Asian, and especially back in the days, it's not something normal. You know, it's like, you know,
question authority.
You know, right? Yeah. And then like,
yes, insubordinate, right?
Correct. Yes, I'm supposed to. Yeah. So I'm being perceived as rude or things like that. But I really wasn't, you know. If anything, I was just curious. I want to learn more. So, but they're just confused. So, yeah. So, yeah. So I just want to, before I forget, do you know that today is new moon?
Oh, no, I did not know. Now I know. New moon, meaning what again?
The new moon is a new beginning, new chapter. And particularly today, this new moon, sorry guys, this is a little bit off track, but before I forget, because Nikki and me, we love moons. Well, for everybody's information, it's also only this year's new moon also falls on an equinox, which means a new year for some places, right? So you are embarking a new journey. You are doing your first, is it your podcast or your first exposure on these, right? Your journey on these. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, all aligned, all meant to be. Seriously, just lean into it, right? It's nice though to be able to, when you have that kind of awareness, you start to discover all the signs that have always been there. And you're like, ooh,
you're so supported.
You feel supported. So by saying that, you're telling me I'm supported, which I love.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're so supported. Yeah. You are never alone. You belong somewhere. You just need to find.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nikki. It's been so nice talking to you. Is there anything? Sorry, I can't hear you. I'm losing you.
Thank you for giving me the time.
Of course. Before we log off, is there anything you'd like to share with any TCKs or TCAs that something we could take with us? And maybe we should remember on those days that those gray clouds are hanging behind us, above us.
that sometimes it's our otherness that makes us the same, and that we should lead into that. So like you said, Brianna, we are never alone. That community exists, and there's different ways in which you can tap into it, whether it's online or you can find in your own town people who want to discuss the experience. Just do that. So hopefully you can take the time to look back at the way that you've lived and how you grew up and how it affects you today, how it affects your mindset, how it affects your decisions, because the TCK experience actually does influence major life decisions. That's what the research says. From where you're going to live, the career you're going to take, the way you're going to raise children, and even the type of spouse that you decide to be with. So just kind of acknowledging that there's a rhyme or reason to things. It's not just all happenstance. I think is very helpful. I know that, you know, you have these great gifts, which are superpowers, and you just got to run with it, and you're not alone. So hopefully I can continue the work and help you on your journey in some way. And please visit my website, where I will write some musings and post some research that's going on. And hopefully I'll be giving some talks on that soon so that you can come. Or friends.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be sharing all Nikki's details in the post. So do give her a follow, you know, and you'll discover more of her work. So thank you so much again, Nikki. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.